Welcome to Off Your Rocker, a Senior View podcast. I'm your host, Billy Daniels, and filling in today as my co-host is the lovely Tom Goldman.
Glad to be here.
Our COO. Yeah, welcome, Tom, for the second time. How was your memories of the first time?
Painful. But I'm back for more.
That's awesome. And what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about some, not really technology, but the evolution of the multifamily residential properties.
I think we're expanding your reach.
Very much.
We're trying to learn things outside of our own industry.
Oh my gosh.
So we brought in an expert today.
An expert, yes. And so, I think it's some of the things we talk about all the time with you and Tim being our CEO, Tom being COO, is that we can learn so much from other industries. And that's what we're trying to accomplish today with the podcast. And
I'm surprised you're actually listening to us and taking that and running with it.
I know, it's amazing. My wife would be so impressed that I'm listening. But yeah, so maybe explain some of the similarities that we've seen in other industries over the years of some of the things that you've seen and maybe Tim has seen for a little bit before we get into our guest here.
Yeah, I think the important thing to recognize regardless of the industry is what are the things that move the needle for the client. Mm-hmm. Right. So when we think about the senior living industry and the communities there's a couple things that kind of come to mind. One is care for the resident, mm-hmm. right? Care for the senior, care for the family as they're going through this transition in their life. And then secondly, helping the business of running the business, keep the building occupied, right? Which is the same for many industries that are in a service kind of role, mm-hmm. like senior living communities are. So we've always found it helpful to look at other adjacent industries to see how they do things. How do they care for their residents? How do they care for the business side of the business and keeping occupancy high and turnover low and those kind of things? So that's why I was thrilled that we were able to score Jeanette today.
Jeanette.
To teach us about how other industries do these really critical things.
Yeah, so Jeanette Cox, Executive Vice President of Odo Development. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great.
Yeah?
Happy to be here.
Are you?
I am.
It's snowing outside. Was that fun?
It was really fun. I wish we were outside right now.
Yeah.
Good time.
You looked like a Little Red Riding Hood coming with your hood on.
Yes,
it wasn't a hood.
We wore hoodies today for you.
You did, yes. Because I said, Tom, to them, I said, Jeanette was going to get all dolled up. Not that you're not.
Well, the question was, I said, is it just audio?
Oh, yes.
Or video? And he said, oh, no, it's video too. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have makeup and hair done. Yeah. And he goes, no, I just wear a hoodie. So I wore a hoodie.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I get put on the spot like always. So, but Jeanette's here to talk to us about, because you have an extensive background in multifamily resident. Are we saying that correctly first off? Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
So to maybe talk a little bit about your background and your current role, and then we'll dive into some of the similarities of how senior living can maybe learn from that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in development and multifamily housing for about 18 years now. Started out leasing and just position evolved from there. I work with the Odo Development Company. I'm executive vice president, and I serve on the National Apartment Association board. So
you're important.
Pretty extensive
Very important
information there. Yeah.
Well,
I
don't stop listing
important.
off all these accliments.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the end.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So 18 years, just shy of 2 decades, huh?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I started when I was really, really young.
Yeah, she was only 12 when she started.
Wow.
Good time.
I can't do math, but
that makes her 30.
I know.
29.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. We'll have a big birthday party here.
Oh, okay. Great.
Party.
Right after this?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I hope we have cake. We'll go tell Cole to go get cake. Yeah.
Candles too, 30 of them.
What do you think the biggest thing maybe that you've learned over that time of the 18 years? I mean, and that I'm not trying to put you on the spot too much, but I just think, is there anything that just comes to mind quickly that you're like, that's what I feel like I've taken away in those 18 years?
I don't know that there's one thing specifically. I think change is always something that you have to learn to adapt. I think in any industry you work in, there's always change. Technology is obviously changing a lot of things in a lot of industries. But for the multifamily housing industry, it used to be considered temporary housing. I mean, most people were always like, an apartment is a temporary home. Now that's completely changed, and it's more of a lifestyle now. And people are actually seeking to move into apartment communities for that maintenance-free living and more of a carefree lifestyle that's a
Yeah.
little more transitional. So I would say that's been the biggest change in just being able to adapt and
To the
kind of
needs.
move. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So do you think that'll make it easier for them as they become older to move into senior living communities because they're used to that kind of lifestyle?
Seniors?
As opposed to having to sell a house and, all the stuff that comes with all that. If they're already in apartments, then moving to one that's more oriented towards senior living seems like that would be a more natural transition.
Yeah, I think so. I think the things that are happening that are making such a difference in senior living and for multifamily is one, you're seeing a lot of baby boomers obviously downsize. There's a large number of baby boomers, and the care of a home is just very burdensome.
Yeah.
It's a burden.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And then you're also seeing millennials not start families as young as they used to with obviously the Gen X and the baby boomer generation.
What are you saying?
Yeah, Billy, what's going on?
Yeah.
Billy, you got some kids
Working.
yet?
Yeah.
But that's very common. I think that you're just seeing a lot more individuals wait to have families, so that need for having a home is not as critical. And then you're also seeing people want a little bit more experience in travel, and having a home actually kind of does not obviously lend toward that kind of lifestyle. So people are seeking out apartments. So the demand for apartments is actually huge. And I think the research is showing that there's an additional 4 million homes that are required to be built between now and 2030 in order to meet the demand. And so when you think of it, you're like, that's a lot of houses.
Yeah.
That's a lot of houses.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, where are all these people coming from? Are you sure we can fill them? But again, with those baby boomers downsizing and with immigration rates, and millennials and Gen Z will actually probably follow the same suit as millennials, and actually living in apartments a lot longer than Gen X. There's definitely the need, so we're continuing to build.
That's crazy. Yeah. Do you have a follow up on that, or you're just curious?
Curious.
Nice.
So, so the properties that you manage today, are they the more traditional condos, converted condo type, or are they the 2,000 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath kind of the same kind of thing you would find in a home, a single family home, but they're not finding in a multi-family building? So what does it look like?
So we are actually developing more of a garden style community that most seniors are attracted to that type of community because it's not going from a home and into this little box, right? So there's a little bit more space and there's more yards. So that garden style tends to be a little bit more attractive for them. But we're also seeing a big trend in that mixed use space just because of the walk scores. You're hearing, like, again, going with change, you've never heard of. I didn't know what a walk score was 5 years ago. I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
But communities are graded on how easy access it is to retail and where they can walk to and entertain. So they're looking for these communities that have everything convenient and right there for them. So we're seeing a little bit of both. I mean, I think it just depends on the region you're in, the city you're in. Obviously, when you get to those more dense cities like New York, San Francisco, Dallas, you're going to see a lot more of that mixed use. But you're still in the suburbs. I think that seniors are looking for that a little bit more transitional, still garden style that allows them to have the flexibility of that lifestyle, that they don't have to have the maintenance, but they still feel like they have a home and they have an attached garage.
That's interesting.
So how do you, I'm sorry, Billy.
No.
So how do you, just like in senior living, there's a lot of choices for the senior and the families, right? There's, particularly in a large area, there's 10 places they could go. I'm sure it's same for So how do you, and this is a problem we talk a lot with our clients. Yeah. So how do you differentiate your space from all the others out there? And how do you find those families to move into your space, right?
The competition continues to get stronger and stronger. Again, with the need of building so many, here in Kansas City, you drive down the street and you see so many apartments.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, okay, so how do I differentiate and separate myself? So for us, again, we just kind of focus on the experience and the lifestyle for someone and try to market that specific. We really try to study, okay, what's our demographic? Who do we think is going to be living in this neighborhood? So you kind of have to look at your surrounding areas and then try to create a lifestyle experience for them and really sell that style for them. So one of the things that I think is what we do really well is create that experience for them, and that our staff is very knowledgeable on events, like creating that sense of community. That's one thing that has changed also in apartment living. It used to be, you know, you didn't really, you went home, you never saw your neighbors, when you want to communicate, you know, you go to work and you come home. Where now people are looking for a little bit more interaction and a community feel with technology coming into the industry and just overall the world. I think people feel lonelier because there's just not as much human connection.
Yeah.
So they're looking for ways to meet people and activities to do. So we really cater toward that kind of experience for them and try to figure out what our demographic is, what kind of events they would like. So we may do, I know we do Wind Down Wednesdays, I believe it is.
Nice.
You know, just a little fun, you know, whatever the demographic is calling for. But we look at that age group that's within our community. So it may be mostly seniors, it may be more of a millennial, and then just try to figure out things that create that bond and experience for them. So anyone coming to look for an apartment for us, we always try to invite them to those so they get a feel for where they might be living. And then obviously once they live there, our goal is, hey, renew, right? We don't want them to move out. Exactly. Again, the competition's tough, so they can go, next year there's a new apartment, right? It's got all the things, the bling, and it's new. So what's going to keep them there is just they've created friends, they're confident in the staff, and less likely to move.
So once you've created that environment and that culture, do you have to sit back and wait for them to find you, or do you use digital marketing technology to actually go find them and bring them to you? We
use digital marketing. We partner with a lot of different advertising companies, CoStar being one of them, but that really does that SEO and SEM to try and attract that customer to come into the door.
Pull them in.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think on top of that, you do a really great job on your social media of advertising just that experience of what it's like living there and through those events. I think you post a lot of pictures of what's happening at the community. I think it's interesting. I wanted to go back to what you were saying about the experience that you're trying to create and I think that's actually a really huge commonality between senior living is that's what they're seeing as well, is it's not amenity based by any means. It's not, they've completely gone away from advertising amenities. Yeah, they talk about them. Yeah, they might feature them on their landing pages or websites, but it's really what's driving the decision for a senior to move into a senior living community, whether that be assisted living or independent living, is their lifestyle after they move in. And so they've done polls and they've done research that shows like, they feel more independent than they felt at home because they actually felt confined, that they couldn't leave their home ever. And now they have friends, like you're saying, their neighbor is there. They're not going to and from work, but they're going down to the parlor, or they're going down to the pub, or they're going down to the dining hall. And then they're able to have those conversations. So their feeling of self-worth is increasing so high, but it's getting them over that hump of making that decision that they want to leave their home. And that is such a hard thing. And I wonder if there is any sort of commonality of people moving from a home to an apartment. Is there anything that you do to help with that decision versus, I guess it would maybe be the same, like advertising those experiences that they would have. Is that what you all do? Okay.
So I think anyone, if you're talking about the seniors moving, it's a lot longer decision for them. So obviously we make sure our team understands that. Like this isn't, oh, hey, I'm moving and I move next year, and I'm, when you're younger, I think there's just a little bit more flexibility, and sometimes ignorance is bliss, right? You're like, oh yeah, I'll do this, I'll try this out. For someone who's a senior, obviously they've spent a lifetime in a home, probably they've, raised a family. And so that move is a lot scarier for them. Yeah. And they feel a little bit like, okay, I'm giving up certain freedoms, or what is it? So I think the strongest thing that we can do when we're looking at seniors that are moving is inviting them to those events so they get a sense, and there's that comfortability of, okay, I can see myself here. I feel comfortable here. I trust. Trust is a big thing when you're selling an apartment home, because you're not going to the store buying a dress and you leave and no big deal. I mean, I'm always like, when I talk to the team, I like, don't ever overpromise, because you will see them every day. They're going to live with you every single day. So if you told them you can do something, you better be able to do it because they're going to know where to find you. They're going to be right there in the
Right.
office and letting you know that you disappointed them. So I think that comfort level is really important in building that trust of, hey, this is the expectation. You know, having a maintenance staff on site obviously is
Yeah.
really important, but it's just a little bit more hand-holding with them to make sure that transition feels smooth. And trust is the biggest thing with them. They want to know, what is my life going to be like? This is a huge chapter change. And I think once they do it and they're there, I think even the next time, if they did, like if they are moving or getting a second place in a warmer climate or something, it's a little easier for them. And as long as you can kind of, you know, make that experience comfortable for them,
Right.
then it's good.
Right. Do you do any different sales techniques or anything maybe by the age or demographic or anything? Because that might be bad, but if
No,
you
we
know,
treat everybody the same. It's
yeah,
their house.
exactly. Yeah. But do you do anything? Maybe they have come to an event and you say, the first thing you said is the sales cycle is a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Are you trying different tactics or maybe multiple touch points or different types of touch points to help them through that decision making process? Is there anything
I
there?
think it's just based on the individual and what their questions are. I think we're pretty adaptable, and we'll just, you know, if somebody wants to come to another event or if someone has more questions, it all just depends on that individual lifestyle,
Right.
where they're coming from. So, again, it's just being patient with how long it takes. Sometimes
Right.
we're ready to like, okay, what's the problem? What's
Would you
wrong with
turn
this
someone away
apartment?
if you didn't think they were a good fit?
No, we don't do that. Absolutely not. Everyone's welcome.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, it's kind of funny because we
yeah.
see that, you know, when I think the better communities are more switched on clients are really digging deeply into the biography of the senior,
Yeah.
Right.
because they don't want to go through a process where 90 days later the family has buyer's remorse, right? So they really want to make sure that, you know, to your point,
Right.
the movie theater actually works, and there's
Right.
like first run movies every
Right.
week, and you know the bar opens at 4 and the swimming pool's warm, and you know all the things that senior may find really important in terms of lifestyle and what they want to do with their day and all those kind of things. And I'm starting to see a trend where if they don't sense that there's a good match, you
Right.
know, maybe this
Sure.
is a really quiet community and it may be faith-based and it may be all these things that don't culturally match with the senior who's looking to party, right, and who's looking to do
Right.
wild and crazy
Right.
things. They
Right.
don't necessarily get together, right? Well, I think
Yeah.
maybe a little bit different in some of the other.
Well, and I think, you know, you have to kind of figure out who that person is and what
Right.
they're looking for. I don't know if you guys we're seeing sometimes seniors want that activity and that, you know, a lot going on, and they want to be in that mix of, so in our industry, we have basically either a senior community or it's 18 and older,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So we do find that there's some individuals that aren't ready to move into that totally senior place because they want to be in more of an integrated, they don't, it's just
Multi-generational
denial.
or
I'm
yeah.
not that old, right? I can't belong
30,
there.
29, whatever you
Bunch
were.
of old people.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so it just kind of depends on the lifestyle they're looking for.
Right.
We've
So
seen a
we're
very
creating
interesting thing happen with one of our West Coast clients, and this is using an application of technology to kind of prove it out. They, the senior will say a lot of things, right? And they want to be part of that activity, but they may not necessarily tell their family what's going on,
Right.
right? So they, you know, the community digs in. It's like, what do you like to do? You know, and they have, you know, 3 or 4 people that are their full-time job is to make sure the seniors are engaged.
Sure.
Playing cards, going to the pool, whatever it
Yeah.
is they said they want to do, helping them, you know, watch birds or, you know, pet the animals,
Hobbies,
whatever it is.
yeah.
So seniors engage in those activities pretty quickly. And the, I forget what they call them, the family coordinators, they're walking around with their iPads and they're taking notes, right? So they know, oh yeah, Mary was at playing bridge from 10
Right.
to 30, you know, 10 to 10:30, and then she went to the pool, then she had lunch with her friends. And then Mary goes to in the evening, calls home. It's like, oh, I just had a horrible day. They just like left me in my room all alone.
Right. Yeah.
It's more like a report card.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
bored. And then the family calls like, mom is mad. Like she's lonely.
Yeah.
And then the
like,
counselor says, wait a minute. And then like they forward all the photos from today that
Yes.
shows.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, I think Toyota did that commercial of millennials, like on Instagram and just on their phone of like, oh my God, look at how great my life is. And they're like making fun of their parents for not doing anything. And they switch the cameras over to their parents are
Right.
actually living the life.
Yeah, they're out
not
like
on their
hiking.
phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that.
That's, look at me, selfies. Yeah. That's interesting. So what in senior living there's a big lead aggregator is what I would say. In your experience, have you used or do you use like different lead sources that in the senior living industry?
We're
that
looking for some. Do you have any recommendations?
We have one that you shouldn't.
Yeah,
talk
exactly.
okay.
So there's lead aggregators out there that are dominating the organic side of search. So someone goes in a searches for an apartment or a senior living community, they're getting to these aggregator pages versus getting to the community pages. Is that
The community's just getting outspent, so
Yeah.
they're not showing up.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
No, it's a struggle. I think that's something that we are constantly challenged in saying, okay,
Right.
well, how do we get people to our communities, to our pages? And when you're competing with huge companies that have a lot of advertising dollars that are specific for our industry. So,
Right.
I mean, obviously we partner with them because we could never spend the amount of money as a privately only small company that they're spending billions on to get these keywords and things.
right?
So I think technology and digital marketing is changing so much. We're always looking
Right.
for, okay, well, what do we need to be doing? What do we need to put on our sites on the back end so that we pop up? And we're working on that. I mean, I would definitely say we don't have that niche, but we know that it's changing, and we're just trying to partner with the right sources so that we can continue to get traffic
Right.
to our communities versus the competitor down the street. Fortunately, we rely a lot on, we build in a lot of major thoroughfares, so we get a lot of drive-by, but obviously with millennials and Gen Zs, it's all digital. They're not driving by to see what they like, so we're just
Right.
working on trying to, get to the top of that list.
They may be making the decision without ever seeing it, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We
Right.
have a lot of people that, lease online without ever visiting the community. And for me, I would be like, no way, I'm not buying
Yeah.
a house without
I
looking
need to
at
see
it, right?
this. Yeah.
It's like that false advertising where everything looks beautiful and you
Yeah.
get there and you're like, well, this is not
The apartment's
it.
tiny. It's like,
Yeah.
well, we had a fisheye lens on that camera, so it looks huge.
Yeah.
Is the overall feeling of these competitors not competitors, but these lead aggregators and stuff like that, how in the senior living industry, it's very negative. They don't like them. Is it similar
Wait,
in apartment?
Say that again?
We can say who they are.
Well, the
Yeah.
reason why is
Yeah.
really simple, right? So the lead aggregators in senior living will take the community's brand,
Yeah.
right? So whatever your multifamily housing brand is,
Okay.
use that brand on their own ads or
Website,
own ads
yeah.
to drive people to click on them, and the people think they're actually clicking on your property, but they're not.
Yes.
And then that lead
Right.
gets populated, and then they
And then-
take that lead and give it to everyone.
Yeah.
All your
They blast it out to
competitors,
10
even though they
competitors.
used your brand, they're going to give it to everybody because they're going to get paid regardless. All right, if the family moves in, they're going to get
Right,
paid.
right. So we have, so we'll advertise our sites, and a lot of times when you click on an apartment in Overland Park or wherever you're looking, what comes up, like even if you knew the specific name of the community you're looking for, what naturally comes up first is going to be exactly what you're talking about. It's
Right.
it's somebody who's bought that, who you've advertised with, and so as soon
Right.
as you click on it, there's 10 other communities that
Are now fighting for that lead.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, that just goes to a team training. Like, okay, you got to look at everything that's come through and follow up on leads, even if the inquiry didn't get to you, but
Right.
trying to follow up on that stuff.
How important is it to do that quickly? I mean, when a lead gets populated.
So research has shown in our industry that somebody is expecting, if they put an inquiry in online, they're expecting a response within 3 minutes. So
Wow.
we always have our sources, on the computer minimized. So as soon as something comes through, it'll pop up. I wouldn't say that we're perfect and we make sure those responses happen that quickly, but obviously that's the goal, because as soon as you can start that conversation and engage them, then that's when you can capture that.
And what percent are form fills versus phone calls? Inquiries.
I don't know the percentage, but I would say I would say 90% of them come through through a form versus just a phone call. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because I guess they're probably doing research more ahead of time and just seeing the different places.
Well, even when you drive by, I think and you naturally, if you see something you like, you just Google it, right?
Right.
So you're not like, oh, let me look up the phone number. I'm just Googling it. It's coming up, so it's very easy, and you have that, contact now button. That's how almost everybody wants to communicate. We're finding people want to communicate more text versus talking.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
totally.
Are you using chat at all?
We do use chat. We would like to use it a little bit more, but we're looking at some different platforms that'll allow us, because what we really want to do is just communicate in the way that our customer wants to. So if it's a phone call, then we'll call you back. If you would prefer to text, then we want to be able to do that. And I've seen that we're trying to mimic a lot of hotel style service now, and you're seeing that in hotels, whereas you check in, you don't even have to go to the front desk anymore, right? So if you don't want to, you don't have to. So I think we're just trying to adapt to what is it that our customer wants and offer any of that.
I don't want to talk to my Uber driver. I want to be
Right.
left alone.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to the
Exactly.
front desk.
Yeah.
I
You
just
can
want to go to my
basically
room.
mute your Uber driver.
Yes, I did not know that. And when
Yeah.
I came down here the other day before we went over to St. Louis, I reserving my Uber, and it's like, do you want conversation? And I was like, wait, what? Yeah, I was like looking at him like, wait, I can tell the driver that I do not want to talk to them. That was just I hadn't seen that yet.
So after you get past TSA, you don't have to talk anymore.
Oh, right.
It's like, get in your Uber, don't talk to the front desk at the hotel.
Right.
Well, hopefully you don't have to talk to TSA either.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Hands like a moose. I think the difference, the thing that I'm sensing in, and I don't know, I apologize because I don't know how many units you typically have at each one of your properties, but I think it's upward, it's 200 to 300 or maybe between 300 and 400.
The average is national-wide. I think the average is about 250.
Okay. So I think where I see senior living probably needing to evolve is you have maybe 3 to 4 leasing agents at each property. And I think where we see a weakness and where we actually fill the void a lot of times with the Senior View is there might be only one sales person, and they're having to vet all this. So I think it was interesting to hear you say the 3 minutes, and I would say that's not the expectation. Well, it's the consumer's expectation in the senior living side of it, but it's not the community's expectation. The team, and because there's only one person.
I mean, some of that may be generational, right? So when we're dealing with adult children who are filling
baby
out
boomers,
forms, they're in their 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
They may have a slightly more tolerance for, particularly in a form fill, that someone can get back to them.
Are you guys
But they're not
finding-
on phone, which is really interesting. So we run about 50-50. Phone inquiries to form fills. So they expect you to answer the phone. In fact, if you don't, they're probably going to move on to the next community. So the phone is more critical in what we do, but that may be generational.
Are you seeing, so in our industry, chatbots is becoming a really big thing for the phone. So are you guys seeing that in
live chat, not bots?
Yeah. They're actually talking, they're going through chat, but they're actually talking to a human on the other side of it. There are some companies out there that we're starting to see in the senior living industry where they're vetting maybe the first few questions. So they might ask, how much is a unit, or how much does it cost? And then that's just questions that have been put in there automatically. They're popping up. But no, typically it's all human that is doing everything.
And it may be because it's more of an emotional decision when you get to this, right?
And I imagine their families are getting involved. Are you seeing?
It's probably the adult kids that are doing that.
Yes.
Yeah. There's definitely a generational, I would say the form fills that are coming in are typically more the adult children. The phone calls are more the seniors who are looking for assisted living or independent living. The memory care is different. That's more the adult children, and there's more of an sense of urgency there. It's something they're in maybe crisis mode where something has happened. It's triggered that we need to do this now, and so that again would still be the adult child, but that's when the phone call is happening. I think it's more around the sense of urgency. Is the 50-50 is a lot of people are doing research. They're just trying to they're in the planning stage, or their parents might be in the denial stage, and they're just trying to figure out, we need to set up these next moves.
So how many, when they're looking for that, how many places do you think they visit before making a decision?
Statistically, they say 2 or 3, but the first community who engages with the family in a meaningful way, meaning not just a receptionist, right? So an actual sales and marketing professional, typically wins that family's business 84% of the time. So that first engagement is critical. That's why we were really interested in that 3 minute that you were talking about. Do you see a similar correlation? So if you get to that inquiry in 3 minutes, do you close a
Yeah,
large
I
percentage
think people
of that
make a
business.
judgment about your business immediately. So, so whether they've reached out via phone or they've reached out through a chat, if they're not getting a response, they've already made 10 judgments about, okay, is this run professionally? Who's behind?
Right.
Who's checking this? How come nobody's called me back? So, I think that's when you can kind of, and you're seeing that closing ratio a lot higher if you can make that connection quickly because there's that trust built. And again, when you're looking at a home or senior care, it's obviously really important to trust the professionals.
So what would you say
that
that is in your industry? Are you 2 times more likely to get that inquiry as a resident if you get to them within 3 minutes?
Oh, absolutely.
5 times more likely?
Yeah.
I mean,
I would say if you can capture that chat within 3 minutes, then I think the studies are like over 60% are going to, you're
They'll
going to
end up
close
there.
that. Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah.
I guess maybe talk about what are some, maybe from your perception of some of the things that maybe senior living could take away from some of the stuff you have learned over your 18 years, or is there, or maybe you don't know. I mean, it's,
I just think, well, obviously there's a lot of senior housing that's needed. So we've even looked at, do we build a 55 and older community or do we keep it 18 and older and anybody? But I think being able to offer that community sense in those events is pretty much, I think, our biggest advantage. And what we've learned that, hey, if you can, like one of our communities has had a very strong demographic of seniors. It's not a senior living community, but it's heavily seniors. And looking at it going, wow, our renewal ratio at that community is like 70%, which is really high for a multifamily community. And it was always, the residents there are so engaged.
they're having fun.
They're having fun.
Yeah,
They've met
that's
their friends because I think
We're not going to talk about what kind of fun.
Right.
Keeping them all there.
yeah.
but-
Are we talking about the villages in Florida? No. Okay.
So I think if you can just create that sense of family, because again, when you guys are talking about seniors, it's very scary for them to change that that lifestyle of theirs. So if you can create a new sense of family, they're going to stay and obviously be happy there.
That's awesome.
Create a friendship.
Yeah, create that experience, that life experience that they would want to have. So, you got any more questions, Tom, for our guest here?
I do not.
All right. Well, Jeanette, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, yeah. And everyone, if you enjoy this episode of Off Your Rocker, a Senior View podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, and share for us. And thanks for listening.
Great job.
Thank you. Good to be here.